again, the media is a funny thing, man. Like,
yeah, I mean, you must have experienced it the most. Yeah, it's like that's. I mean, people always say that in us in little things where you go, whenever the media is going hard on something that you know personally the facts, you know, because it's you or a
right.
close friend or whatever. You're just like, oh, this is how they fucking operate.
And it's funny because like you can't blame them necessarily, I guess, because like they're not you, right? Like they don't know what you know. But like in the old days, like I think in the olden days, the New York Times and stuff, like they'd actually like really research something and make sure like they vetted it correctly. These days, I don't get asked for a comment or anything.
Nothing.
And like the best part was the Wu-Tang album thing, where everyone's like, well, your Wu-Tang album was taken away from you. I was like, what do you mean, this one? And I like press play. Like,
right.
But it was taken away from me. I was like, this is the album that's playing right now, right? Is that the one you're asking about? Like, oh, because I wrote this big article that said it was taken away from you. I'm like, yeah.
Where'd you get that from?
Yeah. Like, it's like, well, what do you think? I bought the album and didn't make a copy? Like,
what was the wildest lies that they told about you?
That one was pretty annoying. In your
opinion, that one was the craziest.
I mean, that one was pretty annoying. Like, one of these things says I'm 5'7", which is funny.
I get the height wrong.
It's pretty annoying because like
especially when you're a single guy.
Exactly. Like I don't care, but it just happens to be the number one most objectively important thing to women. So like it's
I think your bank account's objectively more.
That's important too. But they lie about that too. So it's a very frustrating thing to have to live through. But that's why trust is so low with experts, right? The media supposed to be trustworthy experts.
Exactly.
No longer that at all. In fact, that's why podcasts are working. I did a podcast, kind of reminds me very similar to yours, called Pardon My Take with Barstool. And they got to the bottom of whatever, like this whole thing, like just talking and interviewing, like being normal human beings. And the whole thing was like not edited. It was just like, hey, this is a conversation. Like you can take it or leave it or think you like the guy.
Yeah, agree with some or don't do whatever. But
and that's why Joe Rogan works too, right? It's like, what we don't want is you to tell us what to think. Like that's
and it's happening simultaneously. It's like both. It's like they're losing trust while the other side's the podcasts are gaining trust. There was like a Pew poll came out. Did you see that yet? Like yesterday, and essentially like only 50% of journalists think that, I think it was 54 think that they need to cover the other side of a story, and you're like that they even need to look into the other side, at all. They're just like, we just find out all the info on the one side that we've already decided is the premise essentially, and then just go from there.
Yeah, that's the funniest thing when some journalists will call me up and they're like, we're going to press in 5 minutes. We have these following like.
If I refute this, do you have time to correct it? They're like, no.
Yeah, and I had one thing where Bloomberg asked me for a comment, and I was like, listen, I'm only going to make a comment if you promise that you will put it in your story verbatim as my official comment. And Bloomberg is this service. I'm not if you know a lot about the company because it's a weird company. They have a media company.
I know the media company.
But then they have also a software company that's like a Wall Street software. And they're like, yes, Martin, for a quote from you directly, we will put it verbatim exactly for you. And I responded with, Bloomberg sells an antiquated, extremely expensive software that Wall Street professionals.
This is peak troll days, right?
And they're like, yeah, no, we're not putting this in. I said, you promised. And I've had so many lies like that from media where there's this thing called background where you're supposed to you'll talk to them completely not for attribution. And then I'll read the article and be like, you just quoted me. We said it was not for background. And they'll give me some cockamamie reason.
Oh, like they said it's off the record essentially?
Yeah. And that background is explicitly understood thing in journalism. But even the Wall Street Journal did this to me. They'll be like, oh yeah, well, sorry. And so what am I supposed to do? Sign a contract with you guys before I talk to you? If you do this, I'll sue you for that. How about just not being a douchebag?
My argument is for people to not misrepresent me in headlines because the clickbait headlines, but you'll agree to something because you're just like, I don't have to do anything. So someone's like, hey, like I'll agree, but like don't make a clickbait headline that's something I not said. And then
they do.
And then they they do it worse than you were. I was like, I didn't even expect it would be that bad. And then you ask them to change it and they just kind of like ignore. It's like, I don't know. They're just, all of these places are just running such like, there's a lot of scumbags in that.
That's the other, the scummery that occurs with headlines is really funny because I had to learn this the hard way. Is I'll sit down with a reporter and the reporter will interview me for like 5 hours and write a story. And you think like, okay, this went really well. Like this reporter was totally digging it. Absolutely, completely irrelevant because then it goes to the editor and the editor's like,
oh, right. I think that's
I don't like this guy.
You are right, because I think that's what happens even in the cases I'm thinking about. It's like they didn't set that out, but then they did the thing, and then they said to the editor, and the editor makes the news headline that's like...
Yeah, the editor always writes the headline. The reporter can suggest a headline, but the editor writes the headlines, and, the reporter's just a lackey, basically. And the editor considers themselves like, I'm writing this story, not the reporter. And it's such a crazy thing, and the editors don't make any money.
So there's also no like accountability from lots of people because the editor is like, I'm removed from this thing enough not to care, and the other guy's like, it's out of my hands.
It's totally a lack of accountability, and it's the most important part of the article. And so the editors don't make any money. They're working for some media company. Sometimes at a place like Vice, they're like 26 years old, and the one thing they do have, other than six people living in one bedroom in a Brooklyn apartment. The one thing that they do have is they have power. They have the power to dictate a headline. They have power to remove the one sentence that kind of mollifies you. They have power to augment the one sentence that makes you look bad. And if you try to fuck with their power, that's kind of like one of the biggest insults. And I would routinely try to do that. I'd like go on Twitter after like a journalist posts an article and I'd be like, oh, your article is wrong. And this is, I'd write something like nasty or like, dox them or something like that and be
dox them.
Well, I like live stream.
You mean dox their name, not their address?
I don't know if this
maybe the address came out.
This is a long time ago. I think the world was a different place right now.
World, yeah.
Yeah. You were hyped up in those days.
we got Elon. Need Elon to buy Twitter. Get you back on there.
I like that, but like it's dangerous too because like that feedback.
That's what got you into trouble.
Yeah, like that dopamine.
So it gets everybody into trouble.
There's no upside at all. Like
I heard someone say once that like essentially people go on Twitter and then they get in that feedback loop and then it becomes like this game and like literally winning the game is just getting kicked off of Twitter.
It's cancer.
The final boss.
That's the final boss. It's just finally getting kicked off.
Like imagine playing that game and then Hillary Clinton @s you and like says something about you and you're like, I disagree. Then 5 minutes later you're like, you're a bitch. It's like,
right.
And then everybody's like on Twitter, like half of the people are like, fuck you. Half of the people are like, get him, Martin.
Yeah.
People love a self-destruction of any sort too.
Yeah.
A martyr. People love a martyr.
And she's not exactly the most popular.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like, so after I mean, I really enjoy.
Who was the worst one that, like, of all the ones that you were just like, man, I got misrepresented here?
Well, maybe a good way to answer it is who did I get it in with? So Steve Colbert and Patton Oswalt were like two guys that were really like so dense and stupid about it.
They weren't a fan. You said?
No.
So Colbert.
He's the pharma bro now.
Yeah, did you ever see his vaccine dance?
No.
Oh, dude. Oh, you must have missed it.
Oh, I have to pull him.
You're saying that wasn't going viral in the jail?
Dude, he did this. It was so panned. It was the worst thing you've ever seen. It was all these like Rockettes, but they're all wearing these like syringe costumes. And
only
it was like
some NBC dork could come up with this.
Dude, he came up with it. It's so cringy and bad, and it's like the opposite of comedy. Like it's so far removed from comedy.
So I actually posted it saying that like I just got my first role on Colbert, and people were like, I can't believe you would do this. I was like, yeah, it's not me.
Well, that's why I was like I thought I was beating him at his own game. Like,
so yeah, what'd they do? Yeah, what happened?
I was on fire on Twitter. Like my shit was actually funny, and he would just like be, I think, annoyed by it, and he would try to make fun of me. But again, his jokes always miss, and he's just a social justice warrior that like is vaguely funny. And I think that he wrote something nasty, and I wrote LOL suck a dick. So like one of my like simple comedic responses is like to go to the lowest common denominator, especially as like a sort of pseudo intellectual.
Yeah, it's funny.
guy, like-
It's like just your mom is shit like that.
It's
always
like-
kind of funny. You're gay.
Yeah, it's unexpected, right?
Yeah, well, you're gay.
That's the definition of comedy, is really just unexpected response, and to some extent. So I said that, and his response was, "Are you going to raise the price of that too?" And for everybody, that was like, "Oh, mic drop," which is also like the least funny thing in the world now.
Yeah.
It was like, "Oh, he got you burned, total mic drop." Like, no, I'm like, no, I can't raise the price of. No, I don't get it. You know, like,
Yeah, it doesn't really work.
it was just so dumb. Like,
I mean, he can't. The thing is, his base, he can do no wrong. Like, it's one of those things where like he can say nothing that's gonna, other than going against the orthodoxy of whatever beliefs that every one of them all possess.
Fellas, this is the New Clips channel. Right now, we're at 3K. Hit us with a subscribe. Let's get those numbers up. Very much appreciated. Let's get to 5K at the very least. All right. Thank you. Peace.